Sweet. So today we have on David Tao, co-founder of Barbend, who recently they just exited and sold to Pillar 4. I'm really excited to chat with David. I think I've been on the Barbend podcast once before, and I've contributed a few articles as well. And David reached out to me. They're doing some really cool things. I wanted to chat with them, and so this is a really cool opportunity for people to learn about a lot of things. So David, I appreciate you being on here.
Zach, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to record. I think we're recording next week or the week after for you back on the Barbend podcast, which I'm really stoked about. So we have to be careful because we can't talk about you too much here. I want to start asking you questions. That's my gut reaction, but I'm just going to let this one happen. I'm going to save that for a couple weeks from now.
That's the media guy in you. You're used to being on the other end of this.
Exactly.
Well, cool, David. So at first I want to touch on, where you started before Barbend. You mentioned to me you used to operate a gym. Tell me a little bit about that story, when you started, when you realized maybe it wasn't for you, and how you got started with Barbend.
Totally. I appreciate you asking. So my background kind of post-college was in media, digital content, and journalism. I started my journalism career in business journalism, kind of working for the Forbeses and Fortunes of the world at a time when print media was kind of dying, but people were still a little hesitant to say that. So no one was really sure if magazines had much of a future. And that was interesting to see those legacy brands try and shift and become digital brands. Some of them did that very successfully. Some of them did that not very successfully. And then I did some work in the startup realm and the content consulting realm for a number of years. So I actually was a writer for the CrossFit Games website, really early on. We're talking well over a decade ago when, people were still kind of lifting on plywood at regional events and things like that. Very different vibe than it is today. And after that, I got involved with gym operations and ownership. So I did a lot of marketing for a number of gyms. I actually bought into a gym property as well here in New York City. So I was involved in marketing that and operating that for a number of years. And it did okay. It wasn't necessarily that I think the gym business is a bad business. It's just not really where my passion was. I thought I could take this content background and apply it to gym marketing and operations. I think that's definitely possible, but I realized that it wasn't really giving me a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't what I was best at. There were some people I was working with who were just better at it. And I was constantly learning from them, but I wasn't the best at applying those learnings.
Yeah.
And so in early 2016, I decided to move back into the digital content space. And I was like, this is where I cut my teeth. This is what I'm excited to do. I want to still do that in the fitness realm because I was really passionate about that, but there wasn't really an outlet for that. It wasn't I want to be a strength sports journalist.
Yeah, no.
I'll just go work for this company. Yeah.
Super I was niche.
That didn't exist. I kept asking myself, what's the ESPN.com for people who love lifting?
Reddit.
Reddit, yeah, it was kind of Reddit. It was the old Go Heavy forums, maybe sort of T-Nation. Breaking Muscle was probably the closest. Spoiler alert, we ended up buying Breaking Muscle in 2021, which was kind of a cool full circle thing. And now we own and operate that property. And so I just decided, hey, what if we started this? And so I had some business partners at the time. We kind of pooled our money and resources, started Barbend as a blog, just as a test. And then it grew pretty quickly. We were able to raise a round of seed funding. We weren't able to raise any money from venture capitalists or anything. They said the idea was terrible. It actually ended up being a very good thing for us that we weren't able to raise any institutional money, any institutional capital. But, we got really lucky on timing, right? I got out of the gym space not because anything was wrong with the gym industry, but because it's just not where I was really able to express my passion in fitness the best. And I got back into fitness publishing at a time when that was really becoming more popular. And let's be honest, largely due to CrossFit, more and more people were picking up weights,
Yeah, which CrossFit, I talk about this all the time. CrossFit has done so much for barbell sports. It's insane. And I'm not super in tune with CrossFit and where things are at today, but I feel like a lot of Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting have all eclipsed maybe CrossFit in popularity at the highest of levels. We're still seeing a lot of Gen Pop individuals in CrossFit, which I think is a great thing. But that's been something that I think has been really good. Now, your gym, was it a CrossFit gym? Was it Olympic weightlifting?
Yeah, I co-owned a CrossFit affiliate.
Gotcha.
But there was it was interesting at the time. It was really cool. The gym still exists, CrossFit Union Square. It's in New York City. Great facility. I'm still close with a lot of the folks there in a really great community. It's in a different location than when I was a co-owner. One thing that was really cool about that gym in its first iteration, we had a really interesting partnership with Eleiko. So there was like an Eleiko lifting corner in that CrossFit Unit Square is all outfitted with like Eleiko platforms, bars, plates. And so when international lifters would come to New York, like on vacation, they would often lift there, right? So you'd have, I'm not gonna name names necessarily, but you'd have, like, I think the heaviest clean and jerk ever performed on American soil by a woman was done at that location.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Like I think it was 175 or 176 kilos.
Jeez.
So yeah, you can narrow it down as to like who the candidates are for that back in like 2014, 2015. It was just kind of interesting.
So you, one of the things when it comes to business, I see business as solving a problem. And you obviously saw a problem. You saw that there wasn't a media platform for a home for strength sports when it comes to content and a media platform. But one of the things that I would have been worried about is whether it was too niche, too small of a community. Yeah. What were your thoughts there going into this? Did you feel like it would be able to grow and scale enough?
I just had this feeling that it wasn't too small. And I think that, the feedback we heard from potential investors was that it was too small. Where I think luck comes in, right, is that the addressable audience got much bigger between 2016 and 2021, right? We kind of rode this wave. And I think now actually we're much less niche because when we started, we pretty much only for the first year wrote news content. So it was results, world records, interviews for people who ate, slept, breathed this stuff, right? If you were like a huge strength nerd like me, you wanted to know World's Strongest Man results. And by the way, this is back when World's Strongest Man results were not released until like 8 months later.
Really?
Wow. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
Because it's a television show, they kept everything under wraps until it aired in like December. So you'd have World's Strongest Man in, say, May, and you wouldn't find out who won until December. Yeah. So there was this like big delta of information. And we started off really niche. We were just writing event results, recaps, interviews, world records, training stuff, like really in the weeds stuff. Now we write training guides, evergreen content, nutrition stuff, op-eds. Like we are much less niche than we used to be because we just have more resources, we have more staff, and we write a lot more. I do think that if you are starting something niche, going really narrow and then expanding gradually is a safer bet than getting too broad.
Yeah.
Because if you try and please everyone at the beginning or too big an audience at the beginning, you don't have anyone who really loves you, right? But when we started off, all the other strength nerds like me, or a lot of them were like, oh, Barben's great because it's writing content for me, right?
Yep.
And if we had started off really broad and we were trying to like compete with Men's Health from day one, I don't think anyone would have gone to bat for us.
100%. I mean, I look back to, we talk about luck. I named my gym SoCal Powerlifting. Why? We're in Southern California, we do powerlifting, but having someone able to they could read the name and know exactly what they're getting is really, really important versus someone naming their gym, something strength. It's like, it encapsulates all strength. That's not niche enough for a gym. And so I think that's really important. And I had someone early on even tell me too, oh, powerlifting might die, or it's not that big, or it's not going to grow. And I was just too passionate about it to even care. And looking back, hindsight, you're like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? We're just scratching the surface of what barbell sports can be. And so you obviously captured that wave, 2016. I mean, and on, it was incredible. So take me through a little bit of the beginning stages. I heard you were on a podcast and you mentioned that at one point you were writing 30 content pieces a week.
Probably a little north of that, probably more like 35. I was going back and trying to calculate my average in 2016, and I just got too tired trying to figure it out.
And is that, because it's funny, I'm reading a book by Ryan Holiday right now called Trust Me, I'm Lying. It's all about how he started with American Apparel and in media and stuff. And he's talking about content production and whatnot. And so I'm really intrigued. How did you structure, how would you even find enough to write about? I know it's out there if you search for it, but take me through what that day-to-day looked like.
So it kind of clicked for me. The first I remember the first week we decided, we like put a date on the board. We're like, this is the day we're going to launch Barbend, because we'd built the website, we had the idea, we kind of developed a lot of the back end of the infrastructure. But I was like, what day are we going to go live? And I realized a couple of weeks before, I was like panicking, because I said, oh my God, how am I going to find enough stuff to write? And then something clicked for me. And I realized that because no one was really covering this stuff across all the sports, like there were, blogs for CrossFit, there were blogs for powerlifting, there were forums for weightlifting, but no one was covering like all this stuff. I realized that there was just an infinite supply of content, because every time someone posted an athlete posted a PR training lift, people were interested in that. They wanted context. So I'd go to Instagram and I'd look at the comments, and people would say like, oh, is this PR higher than the world record? Is this PR, you're like all-time PR? At what body weight category? And I started realizing that when people would post this stuff on social media, like it seems a little fluffy now, right? It seems fluffy to like, you're like, oh, we're writing an article, or I thought it was fluffy at the time. I was like, oh, writing an article on someone's gym lift?
Yeah.
Like, is that really, like, isn't that just clickbait? But in the comments, people wanted more context, and they were like, what does this mean? Right? I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, Ray Williams was kind of at his peak then, and he would squat something in training, right? Ray Williams squatted 1,000 pounds in training.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like, is that above the world record? Does that mean he's on pace to set a new one? Have people done more? No one knew.
Yep.
And I was like, well, I could do the research. I could figure this out. So that could be an article. That could be a 500, 600 word article, because people want that context. And it seems kind of silly in hindsight, but once that clicked for me, I was like, we have an infinite supply. I will never run out of ideas and topics, because every event is at least one article. Maybe more depending on the event.
And what about structure too? Because so when I think about content creation in today's world, like let's just say marketing for a service, you want to create as much structure as possible and pretty much be almost robotic and systematic about everything. I feel like with news, you can't. It's just when it happens, we got to get something to market. You got to get something out. Talk to me a little bit about that. How do you deal with the urgency?
Spoiler alert, we have a lot of structure around that now, actually. So it's kind of like, it's almost an on-call system. So like when something happens, who's going to cover it? Because stuff can always happen, right? So we have a great editorial team now. Our head of content, Andrew Gutman, who's a veteran of men's muscle and fitness and has been with us since 2020, has really developed awesome systems for that across both Barbend and Breaking Muscle, right? But back then, yeah, it was the Wild West. I mean, since I was kind of the one-person editorial team, I was just covering things as quickly as possible. I remember the Rio Olympics in 2016. I wrote recaps of every weightlifting session, like as they were happening. Like I'd start writing while I was watching the session. And I felt so lucky that it wasn't that the Rio Olympics were like on roughly the same time zone.
Yeah.
Because if they weren't, say they had been in China or Japan, I would have just had to completely change my schedule 100%. And be like 12 hours on a different schedule. In fact, when the Tokyo Olympics happened in 2021, because they were delayed a year because of COVID, we had editorial team members who were in America, but stayed on Tokyo time. Right? So they were just like flipped 12 hours. They were sleeping during the day and writing at night. And it was just a grind, man. I would leave, like I brought my laptop on dates. I left a birthday party once and like ran, because it was at a friend's house that was like a few blocks from where I lived. I was like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. And I had a friend cover for me, and I ran home. And I am not that fast, by the way, so I was huffing and puffing. I ran home, wrote a recap of something that happened in the news, and ran back and like kind of had my ass covered. You kind of covered my ass on that, right? And like not everyone knew I'd left the party. That's just...
It's what you have to do.
How it was.
It's what you have to do. I talk about the sell your soul phase sometimes with entrepreneurs. And like we all go through this phase where we're just selling our soul. Like taking calls at, 10, 11, 12 at night, if you have to, and with you, obviously the sense of urgency to get something to market. I mean, almost sometimes the first one there wins when it comes to news, right?
100%. We've changed because we're so established now, and because we're such a large site. We don't actually have a first publish policy anymore. It's like we publish the best, we publish it accurately. We will pause on things more than we used to add additional context because we know our content is going to do well. We know we're big enough to where, people are going to look for the Barbend article. We don't have to have the first thing out. We can spend more time and make sure it's of higher quality. I will say, relevant to, I think, a lot of the listeners to this podcast who are gym owners, aspiring gym owners, work in the brick and mortar fitness industry, I always used to joke, and I thought it makes more sense in hindsight. It makes me seem smart in hindsight, but it wasn't that smart at the time, that being involved in gym operations was a 24-hour business. Mm-hmm. Even if your gym is not a 24-hour gym, right? There are 24-hour facilities, but something could always go wrong, right? Pipes explode or freeze. People break in to gyms, right? Like it's weird because gyms don't really carry a lot of cash on hand besides like a vending machine.
And the equipment's hard to steal because it's heavy.
And it goes to like, good luck. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they stole our Atlas stones. Okay, what? Weird. Like that's definitely not worth it.
Yeah.
But things can always happen. People sign up at different times, or they don't, they don't necessarily call you during business hours, or they leave a voicemail, or like, someone's looking to rent the space for a private event, right? And they're calling you late the night before, and they're like, oh, I have, I need a private event in New York City, especially. There are all sorts of weird private events, and gyms are great places because people might be looking for a fitness event, or they might be looking to have a private yoga session for their company, or they might be looking for a bunch of ballerinas to rehearse at 9 a.m. the next morning because they just need a space that has like good flooring, right? You never know what can happen, and being responsive and knowing who's got you covered and who on the team is covering what at different times is always important. And for gyms, like, that would happen. Weird calls would come in for private events. It's tough to say no to that.
Yeah, because you want to. In the beginning, you take every dollar you can because you have to. And then over time, you get a little bit more calculated with what you say yes to because saying yes to something may mean saying no to something better in the future. And you realize, okay, I need to keep some white space for these other opportunities to come in.
Exactly. But for gym owners, gym owners are monetizing physical square footage.
Yeah.
You're like, I need to get dollars per square foot here. Mm-hmm. And anytime this square footage is not being used is time I'm not making money on it.
Yeah.
For a site like Barbend in the digital space, you have to monetize traffic, and you have web real estate. You have to do something with that. You can't go a couple of days without publishing something because people will come to your site and they're like, well, I'm going to bounce. And you're losing money because of that.
Yeah.
So you're losing advertising dollars.
Talk me through, because I'm new to this. I'm sure a lot of my listeners as well are media, super media savvy when it comes to monetizing media and things like that. Talk me through the business model of a company like Barbend. I mean, I'm assuming that most of the revenue comes from ad spend, but what are the revenue verticals for a company like Barbend?
For sure, I'm really transparent about this. I can't say like specific numbers, but I'm definitely happy to share, how we monetize. First things first, and early on in the ordering of how we started monetizing is I think interesting and important. Ads, right? Like programmatic ad networks. Barbend gets millions of readers per month, right? We had well over 30 million readers last year. We're probably going to eclipse that by a significant margin this year. Programmatic ads are really important, right? And that's a lot of eyeballs, and advertisers want that exposure, especially if you're niche. You actually don't need to have a ton of traffic if you're niche, but advertisers want to reach that particular demographic or your particular demographics. So ad dollars, they make the web go round. Really important. You'll notice that Barbend does not have anything behind a paywall. Yeah. There's a reason for that. We want people to be able to access our content, as many people as possible. We do direct sponsorships as well. So we have a sponsored content team and a head of biz dev who runs that. So direct partnerships with brands. That's some of it's on site via advertorial content. Some of that's in our newsletters. A little bit of that's in our podcast. Shout out to Barbend's newsletters. Those we are actually, I think, a little bigger than people think. We have the Barbend newsletter and then the Ripped Report, which is our bodybuilding specific newsletter. Those are powered by direct sponsor placements and advertisements. Then we also have some affiliate revenue on certain content. That's not like the majority of what we publish. I think there are like fitness sites that just publish reviews and affiliate content, things like that. Obviously, that's not us. The bulk the vast majority of what we publish is, strength content. We do also publish some reviews and product focused content. So we advertise via affiliate revenue on that, much like what the wire cutter would do. And then some, we do make some money off of like some ancillary platforms like YouTube, other places like that. There are a handful. We're making kind of a reinvestment in video content in the back half of this year. So I think that's going to be more impactful for us. What I like to joke with people is like, look at how the New York Times is monetizing and change one thing, like flip the paywall for programmatic ads. And that's probably how we're monetizing, right? Because there are only so many ways to make money online if you're publishing content.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems, it seems difficult, obviously, too. And this actually is a great segue into, when did you realize like this was legit? Like that this could be a legit business? I mean, was it a side hustle for a certain amount of time before you went all in? Or when you did your seed round, was it enough money to live off of for a bit and really go all in on this thing? And if you could even, I'd love to know, like, which company was like the first company to really give you guys some big bucks to get ad space?
Yeah. So when we founded Barbend, my co-founders and I, we had a couple other sites and we were still doing a lot of client content and SEO work. The first project I worked with my co-founders on, where we kind of realized like, we jive really well, was on an SEO consulting gig for the University of California medical school system.
Nice.
Which is pretty cool. And it was a lot of fun. And so we were actually doing a lot of like client work for the first, year, maybe even year and a half that Barbend existed. So, we were doing content and consulting for content for other brands, companies, things like that. So that was pretty important for us because Barbend didn't make any money for a while.
Yeah.
And in fact, we weren't profitable until our fourth year in business. Our seed round, which was a little over $800,000, we basically sipped off. We raised that in early 2017, and we sipped off that for like 3 years, basically. Now we started making some revenue, right? So we weren't making there was some revenue coming in, and so the amount that we had to take from our seed round every month got lower and lower until we were profitable and suddenly we're making money. But we had a feeling there was no more money to come because it was so hard for us to raise money initially. No institutional investors wanted to give us cash. So we were like, well, this is what we're going to raise. It's a friends and family round. Basically begged people for checks, for small checks. We got to make this work before that money runs out. And then some of the early brands we worked with, and we did some like brand activations and partnerships with, Under Armour was one. When they were releasing their Tri-Base Rain shoe, we did a lot of really cool work with them, which was really exciting. We did a lot of work with Whoop early on, which was also very exciting. A couple nutrition companies, Ample, we did some work with early on. That was a lot of fun. That was a product I really enjoyed as well. They're around in a different form now. The company's gone through a lot of changes, but it was very cool. So that's just an example of a few.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. And so 4 years before you guys are profitable, obviously you're taking everything you're making, you're putting it back into grow and scale.
Exactly.
Was there ever a moment where you wondered if this was, going to grow into something larger and become what it is? And maybe were there any doubts you ever had?
I am a doubter.
Okay.
I am a hater, Zach. Yeah. I am like I try to be nice on podcasts, but like I sip that haterade like all the time.
That's fair.
But the thing is about that is like it's targeted inward.
Yeah.
Mostly, right? Like I was a very stressed out CEO. I would make decisions and constantly be like, why did I do that? Oh my God, David, you're so dumb. So I don't need haters. I'm my own. I'm my own
hater. You're all you need.
I'm my own hater. But here's the thing. You mess up, you're going to mess something up. You're going to mess a lot of things up. We mess a lot of things up. I think one reason I gravitated toward digital content as a business is that it's easier to pivot quicker. For example, I learned so much from some really cool people when I was a co-owner of a gym, right? But here's the thing about owning a gym. This is just an example, right? And it's not necessarily a mistake we made, but like I saw other people in the gym space make this. Say that you convert half of your gym to a different space, like you're SoCal powerlifting.
Yeah.
And say you're talking to yourself. You're like, Zach, man, you know what? I gotta take half this space and we got to convert it to Pilates, right? We're going to take half our square footage and we're going to convert it to Pilates. By the way, I'm not making fun of Pilates. Pilates is something
it's legit. I've heard it's legit.
It's legit. It's legit. Like, I think pretty much every strength athlete would benefit from doing more targeted core work and like could benefit from a Pilates class every now and then. This is not me making fun of Pilates,
not at all.
But say that you made that decision, right? And you did all that work, and you like retrofitted half of your facility, and you hired up Pilates instructors, and like you're like, we're going 50% in on Pilates, and say it didn't work. Undoing that takes a lot of time, a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of physical change to undo that, right? For Barbend, say we start writing about something. Say we start writing about, I don't know, underwater basket weaving.
Yeah.
Right? We're like, we're going to take 30% of our editorial capacity and we're going to do something completely different for a month and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, it's very easy to pivot back. Right? And we've had to do that so many times. So that's one reason that I tend to gravitate toward the digital content space, so that when I inevitably make a mistake, which happens all the time, it's easier for me to fix.
You're fluid, you're mobile. You can pivot on the fly. I think that's so important. And that's why too, when I talk to owners, gym owners, fitness business owners about creating their own content to market, it's like, just try, just throw something at the wall. You see what sticks. No one's going to remember what you posted a month ago anyway. So you might as well just run with it, and you see what works, and you capitalize on what does, and you scrap what doesn't, right? I mean, that's really it.
100%. And I do think that, I just want to empathize with the gym owners listening to this podcast, because I know it's very easy to say, oh yeah, like it's easy to do that if you have a website, but I have to make decisions that involve construction and permits and all this stuff. I get it. I totally empathize with that. I just really want to like say that point. And I think that is one of the burdens of being an owner of a physical facility. You can touch people's lives in an intimate way that no website could ever do, right? You're going to change lives as a gym owner in a way that like a website could never, right?
Yeah, gym business it's a feel good business. It does make the world, a better place. Yeah, like I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday about e-commerce, because I knew someone in the e-commerce realm, and the dude's driving like Lamborghinis and Ferraris with his e-com, Amazon FBA business, and I'm like, that's cool. Like, don't get me wrong, that's cool, but like, who does it serve, right? Like, is it improving the environment, the landscape we're in, and it's obviously serves himself, and maybe he's making a bunch of money, can donate to charity and philanthropy and whatnot, but I look at my business, I'm like, I get to employ some awesome people to do what they love to do. They get to help others get stronger, get healthier, live longer, hopefully. It's a feel-good business.
I have a question. Does this person live in Miami?
No. There's a lot of that, though.
There's a lot.
The internet money. I mean, I think we've seen it in the last, let's say, few years, especially with like Gen Z getting into like the TikTokers, the YouTubers. And it looks easy on paper. It's like, oh, you just get a bunch of followers and you can, get a bunch of money and make a bunch of money. It's a lot harder than that, but there's a lot of internet money out there where people are just buying the cool cars and doing all the fun stuff on, for the image. But then there's a lot of other businesses. I don't want to say doing it the right way, but like there are businesses like gyms and platforms like yours that they're doing a lot of good things. They're employing people. It's doing good, and I love businesses like that in particular.
I see Barbend. I appreciate you saying that. I see Barbend as being a platform to support growth and popularization of strength.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's a means to an end. Barbend is a way to get more people interested in strength and to get more strength information in people's inboxes and on their mobile devices and in their heads, right? But Barbend is not a place people can go to get stronger. It's a place they can learn. It's a way they can learn more about strength, maybe get motivated, maybe empower themselves. But ultimately, that's got to happen in a physical environment, whether you have a home gym, whether you're just doing body weight stuff at a park, or whether you're going to SoCal powerlifting, soon to be SoCal powerlifting and Pilates. But like, just joking. But like, we are like a highway, and people got to take an off ramp somewhere.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you guys have done so good for helping gyms like mine grow in the sense of normal people are stumbling upon the strength sport, and they're saying, okay, like our client base is typically the people who are going to like a Globo gym, and they just found their first program online. Maybe they read an article on Barbend that pinpointed them to a coach, and now they're looking to work with someone one-on-one, and we just so happen to be a brick and mortar, and we do online stuff too. But it's like more platforms and mediums for that to occur. It's only going to help all, anything in the fitness industry, online coaches, in-person coaches, brick and mortar gyms, all of it.
We early on, if I could just share one little story early on, and again, I'm not going to name names. I'm going to not get too specific, but I had like a bit of an email based argument / tiff with this gym owner. This is probably the second year, probably like 2017. We wrote about an athlete. I won't even say which sport, and the gym, the person who owned the gym, the athlete was training in, messaged me and was really mad that we like wrote about the athlete doing stuff in this gym and didn't like put their gym in the title of the article or something like that. First off, I didn't even know what gym it was, right? Like I don't know what every squat rack in every gym in the country looks like. Like there's no way for us to know that. And the athlete hadn't even said where they were. And the gym owner got mad, and they were saying something akin to, "Oh, Barbend's just like, you're trying to like put us out of business. You're trying to undercut us. You're not like valuing us." And it really hurt me. But I'm an adult. I'm a big boy. It's fine. I have my feelings hurt. But it hurt and hit me in a rough way, because I was like, I was a gym owner. I don't see Barbend ever. Why would we want to put a gym out of business or take away from a gym? Like, I want more people to go to gyms because of Barbend. Like, that's what I want, right? I want more people to find the great training facilities, right? Maybe people stop going to like the big box gyms, or maybe they stop going to like gyms where they're just kind of dicking around and not doing real training, and maybe they get inspired to go find the facilities where they can do some real training and learn from people who are passionate about this stuff and who really want to help them. Like, that's the whole point. The whole point of Barbend is being that online, building that online ecosystem that then leads people to go do real training. Yeah. That's what I want. And that's why that hit me. That's why I remember that like 6 years later, and why I still think about that sometimes, because I'm like, that's the antithesis of what I wanted to do here, and hopefully the antithesis of what Barbend's actually accomplishing.
Yeah, that's tough. Because I've had some similar situations, in the sense where like I'd have an influencer, maybe we toss them free membership or free day pass, and like they don't tag us, right? And it's like an unspoken thing where you're like, well, I thought we had something here, bro. But it's like, your job with your company is literally just highlighting, lifts from lifters, and it's just helping increase the landscape for reach and getting it out there. That's really all that matters. And especially given that you're not selling programming, you're not selling coaching, you're not selling a gym. You're literally just bringing lifts to life, right? That's really it.
Yeah. I mean, like Barbend, we have some physical, we've had an office, we actually have like a filming studio, et cetera. I might be working on a new one, wink, wink. But like, yeah, Barbend's not a place you can come. We're waxing. We're in like such full agreement here. And Zach, one reason I'm excited to have you on the podcast is, I think you're an interesting person, and I want to talk about a lot. But like, my hope is that someone listens to the podcast episode we record next week, and they go, "Oh, I should check out SoCal Powerlifting."
Yep.
Right? Like, hopefully that happens. Right? That's part of the point.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I wanted to touch on, because I've seen this shift with social media in the last few years, is video. And you mentioned you guys are going to be buffing up the video content a little bit more. What is the trend that you're seeing with in terms of shifting to video? And do you think it'll continue that direction? Because I've also heard a lot of people complain that they miss text content.
So I think there's an integration, right? I think that you're going to see video and text. Like, people want that. They want those two things combined. They want some kind of interesting marriage between that. Like, I think that content gets more multimedia. For example, say that you're looking at a product review, right? And someone reads a text-based article on that. Okay, cool. There might be some really good information in there. but that article is going to have a bigger impact if they also see the author of that article or someone else on the team interacting with that product in a video. Because it's like, oh, you actually know about that product, right? And they can watch that video and they can read the text, and you get this nice marriage between the two, and you can meet people where they are. Sometimes people want to watch a video, sometimes they want to read text, sometimes they want both, and sometimes one plays into the other, right? And they feed off of each other. I think the best content strategies are about meeting people where they are, making it as frictionless as possible for them. Sometimes I want a video on something. Sometimes I go to YouTube, and if I'm trying to figure something out, I look it up on YouTube. Sometimes I Google it. And sometimes I look at it, I search for that on Instagram. I was going to say sometimes I search for that on TikTok. I do not personally, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Can you produce content that meets people where they are?
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I'm the same. Like, there's a lot of things like maybe it's a sneaker review. I want to see that it's like a 5 out of 5 and it's got like the stars next to what it's good for, and then probably just buy it from there. Like, I don't need to watch the video, going through all the pinpoints and things like that. And I find sometimes it's easier to consume text content real quickly than watching the entire video, or maybe just give me the transcript, from the video. Let me review that with my eyes real quick and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But it is funny how you see them combined. I mean, everyone uses captions now. I use captions on all of my video content because people want to follow the subtitles with their eyes while watching and listening to the video. So I think we're definitely shifting a lot towards the video stuff, but I can see a lot of people getting a little videoed out. Like they missed the word-based, the text-based content as well.
Well, one thing about going multimedia that's really cool is that it makes content more accessible, right? For people who are, people might be hard of hearing, right? Subtitles are great for that. People might be visually impaired, right? Videos and audio is great for that, right? Like, it's not about just meeting people based on like what they're in the mood for. It's about meeting as many people as possible, like with your content. I think something that we really focus on at Barbend, but we are not like, there's no like we're the best at it and we hit 100%. We're always trying to get better. How do we cast a really wide net? And how do we make strength accessible to everyone?
Yep.
Right. To as many people as possible. And that could be different ability levels, right? That could be different ages. That could be different people of differing, all sorts of stuff, beliefs, backgrounds. I don't know. I mean, like, sometimes I have to, like, early in my strength career, occasionally was in environments where I did not feel welcome. Right. And to be honest, like, my life's pretty dope. And I'm like, don't really have many problems with going places and like how people see me, right? Like, I'm luckier than like 99.9% of people on those things.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I experience that, what are other people experiencing? What are, like, geez, I don't know what it's like to walk in the gym as a woman, right? Because it's not as societally acceptable for a woman to lift weights and be strong. And it's not as a lot of gym environments. SoCal powerlifting is very, by the way, I will say, accommodating, accessible. You should all
thanks.
Like, you're doing it right.
Thanks.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, a lot of those in strength environments are not accessible to women, people of color, people of different beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, ability levels. Like, that is something that has always annoyed me. And I thought if I experienced that, then what are other people experiencing? Because I know that I am able to go into these spaces in a much safer and more like frictionless way than a lot of people. And ultimately, the best part about strength is that no one should give a shit what your background is.
Yeah.
Like, the whole point is that we're in there trying to get stronger, and I don't care where you went to school or where you grew up or who your family is. Like, and nor should anyone in a gym, because we are all trying to figure out how strong we can get.
Yep.
What does anything else have to do with anything?
No, it's ridiculous. I had one of my coaches, before he worked for me, he reached out to a gym that's semi-local to us, and he was calling. He's like, yeah, I'm just trying to work out with some people that do powerlifting, and the owner was like, "Oh, you're looking for CrossFit?" And he's like, "No, like I want to powerlift. I want to strength train." "Oh no, it sounds like you're looking for CrossFit. Like we don't do that here." Bye. It's like what? No wonder. And then you wonder why so many gyms struggle. And I think a lot of it is leadership, and there's things like that. But it's this creating an inclusive environment isn't hard. It's really not difficult at all.
It's the question I have to ask myself sometimes is, okay, and I fall victim, like I have my own stereotypes, which I have to fight, right? Like, what is it? Describe a power lifter, right? If you actually look at the demographics, like if you ask people off the street, they may say one thing. They might be like, "Oh, it's like a jacked or like a big white guy with tattoos who listens to Slasher." Okay, nothing wrong with any of those things, by the way. Some of my best friends are large male powerlifters with tattoos who listen to Slasher. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
But like that is actually not the average powerlifter in the United States.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That is in no way, shape, or form the like median of the demographic, right?
Yeah.
There are more competitive, like if you look at some of these sports, I think there actually might be, in weightlifting specifically, I think there actually might be more women who are competitive weightlifters in the United States than there are men now. Right? I don't quote me on that exactly, but I'm looking at like some of the recent statistics from USA weightlifting meets, like there are more women lifting than
competing
men at some of these meets, right? So like these stereotypes, like what is your stereotype of that, of what that is? Like you're probably wrong, no matter who you are, because they're just, these populations are more diverse, and they have been for a long time, right? People just, they hold on to these mental images.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons I think we've done so well is we've made powerlifting a little bit more palatable. I always wanted to be the powerlifting gym that was, it's not the big old hairy white guy in the back, shirtless with the 700 pounds of the bar in a squat suit. Like it was very much like it. Most of our clients at SoCal Powerlifting are like engineers, software engineers that work locally. We're in Irvine, tons of tech. And that's what powerlifting is for us. Right. And so exactly. I think there's a lot of, the old school people, still out there thinking that it's one thing when really it isn't, but it's really whatever you make of it. And that's all that matters.
I do want to credit CrossFit for pushing this belief that anyone can do real training.
Yeah.
I had Zach Tellender on a podcast years ago, and like we can bash CrossFit, and let me tell you, no one can criticize stuff like Zach Tellender. That man, he can
I love
criticize
his stuff. Yeah.
He can criticize whatever you want. Like you just like, he's professionally great at it and really entertaining. But one thing he said really stuck with me. He's like, say what you want about CrossFit, but it got people doing real training.
Yeah.
Right. It got people of all these different backgrounds doing real training. It got, the 40-year-olds who had never self-identified as athletes. It got the 60-year, it got the grandmothers, it got the tech workers, it got the former football players who hadn't worked out in 20 years. Like it got all these people doing real training. And that's important and impactful.
Yeah, it had helped all of us grow. One of the things I really wanted to touch on, first of all, I think in the fitness industry, for some reason, I don't know why we don't build this way, but a lot of people don't build to exit. I don't know if they don't see their companies that like the gym they're building or whatever they're doing as something that is exitable, when I think that's untrue. But I wanted to touch on your exit a little bit and talk to me a little bit about what you guys had to do to prepare for something like this. And then I want to get on to what you're doing now, as former CEO.
I appreciate both those questions. One thing that we got, I will say with Barbend, we started getting offers to sell the company in 2021, like at a pretty significant clip. Like they would come through fairly frequently, at least more frequently than I might have anticipated. And we were in no rush to sell at all. I did realize at a certain point that, and I didn't always know this, I did realize at a certain point that independent media companies can only get so big because like if the Google algorithm changes and we lose some rankings, or like, our traffic dips a little bit depending on the time of year, because strength is very seasonal, right? Depending on like the calendar. It had an impact on our bottom line, and it reduced how we could scale over time. So I did come to a point where I realized that my partners and I realized that, hey, we can probably only grow so big as an independent company. We're going to be throttled by the ebbs and flows in the content cycles. there's nothing wrong with that. Like we could have continued we were profitable. I was happy. We could have continued for a long time. I will say that I think what set us up for partially, this is just partially for an exit, was that I started getting really burnt out personally. I was CEO, but I was also kind of running editorial and ad sales. And I realized that there was too much that was reliant on me. So if I got sick, like I got like sick one week, the company kind of stalled, right? Because too much was running through me. I was trying to be the conduit for too many things. And so we realized that needed to change. So we started changing that, mostly because if something happened to me, it could have been really bad for the company, and it would have been difficult for the company to rebound from that. We had a key man problem. And in getting it, also, like, I had some health stuff, like I just wasn't able to sustain that for, at that pace at that time. I needed to take some time off. Getting me out of that position and making more things in the company less reliant on me set us up for an exit, because no one wants to buy a company where the entire value of the company and all the systems, not saying all the value was with me, that's not what I'm saying, but all the systems are reliant on one person, right? And that's an issue that I think gym owners have.
Yes.
If they want to potentially sell, because if they are like the
coach. If they're the coach, yeah.
If they're it, right?
The guy,
if they are the gym, like that makes it very difficult to present as a business that someone would want to purchase.
Yeah.
Right? Because like I am still with Barbend. I'm now head of brand. I'm doing a lot of cool things. I'm talking to people on podcasts. I'm spreading the word of Barbend in like really cool and interesting ways, working on our new video strategy. I'm loving it, right? But if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, Barbend's still going to exist.
For sure.
And Barbend was only a palatable acquisition target. It would not have been a palatable acquisition target if everything relied on me.
Yeah.
Because I'm still with the company. I don't plan on going anywhere, right? But at the same time, who's going to pay money for a company where all the systems run through one person whose bandwidth is limited?
It's not scalable either. Yeah, it's just
not scalable.
Yeah, I see it with gym owners all the time, typically at the smaller scale, where they're still coaching every class and they have no time to work on the business just because they're coaching 12 hours a day. It's the same concept. Like you don't have a business at that point. You have you have a personal training. You have a job. It's a job, and you just so happen to not have a boss. But your bosses are your clients. So that's so interesting. Now with you into this next chapter, one of the things I'm really big on. Just like fulfillment, right? And my goal is to, like, I really like the book Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. Like, I'm all about just using all the money utilities possible, living a great life, all these things, and feeling fulfilled in what we do. I could see, and I've thought about, in the future, if I ever wanted to, like, exit SoCal powerlifting or focus on other projects, almost feeling as though, like, I lose a little bit of fulfillment, or, like, I don't have as much to do, or especially if you get like a decent payday from an exit, right? And like feeling as though you still have a sense of purpose, even though you're taken care of financially. And of course, I don't know necessarily the numbers on your end, but how do you, in this next chapter, how are you staying fulfilled? How are you keeping the cup full?
I'm going to be straight up with you. I have been going to therapy to try and figure this out.
Okay.
I just, like, I am not someone who would have admitted that like 2 years ago, maybe even 1 year ago, but you know what? Like, let's just put it out there, right? Like, I'm trying to figure that out. I'm still with Barbend. I'm still a face and a representative of Barbend, and it still gives me a lot of fulfillment. That's what I wake up and focus on, right? But I'm not CEO anymore. Barbend, I don't work the hours I used to. And now it has me thinking, like, what do I want to do with that capacity? Because I know I have that capacity. How do I expand my interests? And that's been a little tough. It's been bittersweet. It's bittersweet to sell a company because it's a success. Yes, awesome. Like, it made money for a lot of people. It's great. But suddenly, like, I don't know, I'm not CEO anymore. I don't call the shots.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have that title anymore. I can't introduce myself as that anymore. People know what a CEO is. You say head of brand, they're like, what do you do? Nothing wrong with that, right? But I self-identified as that for so long. So it's been, I'm not gonna say it hasn't been challenging, but one of the great things about living in New York City is I just can do kind of whatever I want because there are always people to meet. There are always hobbies to get into. I do a lot of work in the whiskey and the spirit space. So that's actually not
by your background here.
By my background, yeah. It's actually not a new thing. I've been doing a lot of whiskey reviews, writing, consulting, investing for a number of years. I've been more public about it recently. So, I just finished a couple of weeks ago. I wrapped up a national tasting panel, which was super fun. I have a lot of this weekend, I'll probably spend tasting whiskeys and writing reviews that, I get sent. I do a lot of stuff in that space, and that gives me a lot of fulfillment. I met a lot of really cool people in that space. I'm from Kentucky originally. I grew up around the bourbon industry, so that's kind of helps explain that connection. So that's something I've done to diversify. It's very much the opposite of fitness, right? The opposite of fitness is probably poison, which is what alcohol is technically.
Pretty much.
So, so I've been using that to try and build friendships and connections in that community. The fitness community has been very good to me. I'm very much still a part of the fitness community in New York. At least I like to think so. But as adults, we have to work to find other communities.
Yeah.
I think one reason people gravitate towards strength sports is that it's a way to build community as an adult that isn't your job, right? At least for most people, it's not their job, but they might want to compete or find a team or find a powerlifting gym. And I'm sure people come to SoCal Powerlifting and they make friends and they become part of that community. And that's a social outlet. That's something they identify as away from work and separate from work. I think we all need those things. But it's tough to do that because when you start a new hobby or when you enter a new community, you will, by definition, suck at it, right? You will not be the most experienced, best person at it. And it is a skill to be okay with being bad at something and to be new to something. Right now, I'm at the point in life where I'm trying to relearn that skill and be okay with not being the most experienced, with not being the CEO of the company everyone's heard about.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part. I've seen a lot of founders exit and do so many cool projects and so many cool things, but I think at the same time, it's finding what that is and continuing to feel fulfilled, in your day to day. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard when you were, I'm sure it was hard when you were CEO and you were burnt out. It's equally as difficult in different ways. And so, but it's been cool to hear the story, man. I really appreciate your time and coming on and sharing some of this. I think Barbend's story is one of those feel good business stories, started from scratch, started from nothing, and really came out, and you guys have done some amazing work for our industry. And I couldn't be, more stoked to share your story and what you had to say today.
Zach, it's been awesome following along with your journey as well. I'm excited to dive into that on the Barbend podcast. And like I said, I'm very thankful for this industry because it connects me with cool people who say smart things and who I respect and learn from, yourself very much included in that. And I appreciate you letting me share a little bit, ramble on about stuff on my end.
Absolutely, man. Well, I'll share all your socials and stuff when we get this up here. So I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man.